Hello, this is Nina Perez at Straight Talk, No Sugar Added. Thank you so much for watching. So today you're probably seeing a little bit of a different studio setup here, but this is my home studio. And I had the privilege today of speaking to someone who's remote. She's not here right now, so we decided to do the format this way. And I want to thank you for watching. So I'm going to introduce you to somebody pretty amazing. I am in love with this woman. I think she's fantastic. So I know that you will feel the same. Her name is Nas Panky, and she is an author, director, and an editor. So Nas is an African-American Bronx native screenwriter, and she focuses on telling impactful stories that make a difference. She is a proud single mother of 2 sons, the author of Evergreen Uprooted, Memoirs of Secret, and a God-fearing woman. Let me tell you, I just got this book last night, and I'm already on chapter 7 because I could not put it down. I stayed down here in the studio. My husband's like, when are you coming upstairs? I'm like, I'm not. I have to keep reading. This was such a good book. So if you don't have this book, you need to get this in your library ASAP. So Evergreen Uprooted is her life story, and it's a story of redemption, of hope, inspiration, about overcoming adversities in life, and most importantly, about faith. So we will be discussing a lot of life challenges in this session, and we were going to really hopefully give you some tools on overcoming trials and what trials are in your life and what you can do with those trials. So Nas, I want to thank you so much for being here. Say hello to the viewers.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to have you. And like I was saying, like I was going through the book and I started like highlighting and stuff. And I'm only on chapter 7, so I have to get through the rest of this, which I'll probably read tonight or the next day. It's really a great book, Nas, and you really did such a good job at pouring your soul out into the pages. I was reading it, and it was just like it was like mind blowing and impactful, and you've been through quite a bit in your life, quite a bit. So I wanted to have you, the first thing I do with all of my guests is I have you introduce yourself. So just give us whatever you want to say about yourself. Give us a quick introduction so that people get to know who you are.
Okay, well, good afternoon. My name is Nas Panky, which you already said, and I am a single mother. I have 2 wonderful sons, and I try to live each day without regret. Each day I open my eyes, I try to live my days in peace, because so much of my life has been without it. So I believe peace is the most important thing. You know, countries go to war for peace. So peace is very important. And I try to live each day that way.
That's wonderful.
So a little bit about me. Yep, I'm a mom. I'm a writer. I spend a lot of my time writing and creating, just doing the things in life that make me happy. That makes me happy, and trying my best to love others, and also building strong relationships with people. That's important. That when you have wins, people are there that love you. People that love you are there to celebrate those wins with you. And I want to be able to celebrate wins with my friends. So just taking time to build really good friendships. That's pretty much who I am. A writer and a mom, a believer in the Lord above, who's been so great to me, and just trying to live life without regret. That's me.
That's fantastic. And most of us need to take a page out of that book, because life is too short. And as you know, we're not promised tomorrow. I have the same, kind of mentality and attitude, like living my life to the fullest and trying it. And if it fails, oh, well, I'm good, So I totally get that. How old are your boys?
My oldest son is 21. He will be 22 years old in August. Wow. And my youngest son is 15. He will be 16 this January.
Okay. Aren't boys the best? Grade. I have 3, so I love them.
Wow. Yes.
3 boys
awesome.
and a girl. Yeah, they are awesome. I love boys. So that's really great, Nas. And just so that people know, I mean, that's a great attitude that you have right now. But it hasn't always been that way for you. There's been a lot of challenges in your life. I mean, just like I said, I'm only on chapter 7. And just in that, I think at this point you're only like 8 years old. So just in that, reading those 7 chapters, I realized that you had been more through those 7 chapters than most people have been through in their lifetime. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about the story of Nas, especially in the 80s, and how, you know, how that impacted your little mind and what you went through. Do you mind sharing some of that?
Sure, sure. I'll try to share some stuff that's not in the book.
Oh, good.
The 80s, my life in the Bronx with my mom was really, really awesome in the early 80s. It really was. My mother was she was a good mom. She was a good mom, and she was my world. I didn't know Jesus. I didn't know the Bible. She was my God. She was my world, my mom. And she was in a terrible accident. So one day she used to work at Colgate Nursery, which was around the corner from where we lived. We went to Colgate Nursery and she worked at Colgate Nursery. So we were with her all the time. When I say we, I mean my sister. At the time I had a younger sister. We were a year and 4 months apart. And I had another sister who was born in 1980. So I had an infant and I had a sister who I was a year and 4 months apart from. And we were with my mother all the time. You know, so basically she was a single mom. So we was always there. And then she just took, you know, we went to school. She was at the daycare. At home, she was at home, always there. And then one day she just wasn't there. And she was in an accident where she flew through a window of a van and she almost died, you know, over 200 stitches in her head, 100 in her face, just almost lost her life. And I think that traumatized me as a little girl. That traumatized me because I remember coming home, my grandfather coming to the school to pick me up early, and he brought me home. And just walking all the way down to her room, which her bedroom was the living room. It had been the living room had been transformed into her bedroom. And I remember pulling the curtain back and seeing a Polaroid picture on the floor. And I picked it up and looked at it, and I didn't know who I was looking at. I didn't know. It was so much blood and glass, and it was just horrifying. The person in I didn't know. It took me a while. I was just staring. It was so hard to look at. And I realized it was my mother. Someone took a picture with a Polaroid picture of her right after the accident while she was on the ground fighting for her life. So I saw, and I just screamed. And from that moment, I had a fear that my mother was going to die, that I was going to come home one day and she wouldn't be there. I just had that fear as a little girl. I realized that I could lose my mother. And that was a lot for me because I didn't know my dad. So that was a lot for me. The only person that I knew, my mother, my God at the time, that was a lot. And so I lived with that fear of losing my mother, and I got anxiety. And from a young child, I began to worry a lot. I began to worry about things that a young girl should not have to worry about. Grew up a lot faster than a lot of kids mentally because, you know, I was the oldest. Even though I was a little girl, my mother always made me feel like I was responsible for my sisters because I'm the oldest and and it was always the thing. Well, it was us against the world, you know. We're all we all we got is what she would say. We all we got. All we have is one another, and it's just us. And that's what I grew up believing, you know, as a young child in the 80s. So that was really, really tough for me mentally because at that young age, I was being taught that my feelings did not matter. It was all about what I need to do for my younger siblings, what I had to do for everybody else. And I grew up like that. I grew up putting myself last. And because of that, I went through a lot of abusive relationships. I went through just people in general mistreating me because I was mistreating myself. I didn't put value on myself. So but that's going forward. We're still in the 80s. But yeah, that was what I remember of the 80s, and just remembering some of the good times. But there were a lot of hard times too, because of course, after the accident, and my mother got hooked on crack. You know, she was on crack, she was on heroin.
Was that before the accident she was already doing that, or was that after it got worse, or how
the crack? The crack came after the accident.
After the accident, okay.
The crack came after the accident. She was on heroin pretty much before the accident,
Right.
but I never knew she was on drugs because
Oh,
she
okay.
took care of us. She was always there. We were always with her. You know, we were always clean. We always had food to eat. She always spent time with us. So she was on it, but I never knew she was on it. I didn't
Mm,
realize she was on drugs until she got on crack, because that's when she disappeared. That's when I
right.
would wake up in the night
That was a very
she would
vicious
be
drug.
gone. Very
Hmm.
vicious. It was in the 80s when it, like the early 80s, when no one knew what it was, what to do
Yep.
about it. What's the cure? Is there a
Yeah.
cure?
It
No one
affected
knew.
our family too. It affected a lot of
Yeah,
families.
it was an
Yeah.
epidemic, and it just
Yeah.
really destroyed lives. It destroyed children. It destroyed families,
Yeah.
especially in the poor neighborhoods, because that's where it was targeted. It was targeted in the ghettos, and
Yeah.
and during that time, I remember police officers, and I love police officers. I'm not knocking any, but I remember police officers would see people just smoke crack, and it was okay. It was,
Yeah.
nobody would do anything about
It's
it.
almost like they couldn't do anything about it. It was
Yeah.
so much of it. It's like we won't even have
Yes.
room in jail for all of this.
It was
Yeah.
no room for it. It was just
Yeah.
so bad. I mean, prostitution was at an all-time high, in the
Yeah.
Bronx, the South Bronx, Hunts Point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and I lived on Hunts Point too. That was later down the line. So, but yeah, prostitution was at an all-time high, crime all-time high,
Yeah.
drugs, and just it was terrible. And no one knew, and it just happened. It's just like it happened overnight.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
no one knew what to do about it. So that's what happened. My mother got hooked on crack, and she changed.
Yeah.
She changed, and it
That
was
happens.
really hard. I loved her, and then I was scared of her at the same time.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, it's a scary thing, right? Because you are the oldest. So you're thinking, I have to be responsible. How am I responsible for my sisters and this woman that's supposed to be my mom, right? It's a
That's
very
right.
difficult thing. And I was actually reading a little bit about that, which, man, you overcame some stuff. Oh my gosh. But I was reading about I began to feel alone and afraid. This is on just page 3. After about a minute or two of staring at me, she offered me a hit.
Hmm.
Do you remember that?
I do
No,
remember
no,
that.
thank you, I said. I was shocked that my own mother was asking me at 9 years old to smoke some crack. I knew at that moment that her mind was really gone. And she said to me again, come on, take a hit, smoke it. And I looked at her straight in her eyes. No, mommy, I don't want it. I don't want to. And I'm just like, wow. And it's something to be said, right? At 9 years old, for you to know inside, this is wrong,
Hmm.
and I don't want to do this, you know.
Yes.
But that's to show you what that drug epidemic was doing to people, right? Because in her right mind, she would have never said that to you,
Never.
right?
Exactly.
But when
Exactly.
they're in a drug like that, their mind
Hmm.
is not theirs anymore. It just is not
Yes.
theirs.
Yes.
So that must have been very hard for you, because if your mom was absent and you had 2 siblings, I'm assuming that made you now mom.
It did. It did.
Yeah.
And it was really tough, because at that moment, and the reason why I tell that story in the beginning there, because at that moment is when I realized that I didn't have her anymore. She was completely gone, and that was devastating to me,
Yeah.
because it's like you going through a loss all over again. I went through the
Yeah.
loss when I came home from school, and I saw that picture of her really from daycare, and I saw that picture
Hmm.
of her with her all cut up and beat up, and I was 4 years old. I was 5 years old. I was
Wow.
5 years old when I saw that of
You were
my
a
mom, and
baby.
I was traumatized by that. And then the next, and for her to offer me crack, I was like, okay, now she's gone.
Yeah,
She's
yeah,
gone
yeah.
again.
I think you
And
were already like eight or something at that time, if
9,
I
yeah,
remember.
9.
9. Okay, 9.
And I
Yeah.
didn't know what to do or how I was going to get her back. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
what do I do? And all
Right.
I knew how to do was try to take care of my sisters, because I knew that's what
Hmm.
she would want me to do. Try to take care of my sisters, and that's all I knew how to do.
Right. I mean,
Mm.
what else can you do, really? That
Yeah,
that is all you can do.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so how did you go about taking that responsibility, like that role, that when your mind said that, how did you now say, okay, I have 2 little sisters, how do you even go through that, right? You're not working, you're a child.
No.
It's not like
Mm-hmm.
you have food stamps lying around for you, or, and let's
Nothing.
face it, somebody who becomes addicted to crack also becomes a very good liar and thief, right? Before you
Yes.
know it, you don't even got socks anymore because they sold your socks.
That's right. That's right.
Because
That's
it
right.
affected my family too. I had some
Yes.
relatives and they would steal anything and everything that wasn't already bolted down to the floor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's right.
and you knew you loved them. It broke your heart. You didn't know how to actually deal with it. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, what do you do? But as a child, you said your mom was a single mom. So now I'm assuming that you also didn't have a male figure there either, right? So,
Well, I had a stepdad, but it was
mhm,
like after she had the accident, she got a lot of money, and I
mhm,
believe he married her for the money. So I had a
right,
stepdad, but he wasn't there. He was always going to work and never around. He didn't buy us food to eat. He didn't do anything for my sisters and I, nothing at all. So I was in this place where, okay, we did get food stamps and help from the government, but my mother would take that and cash in the food
sell
stamps,
it. Mhm,
sell everything,
mhm,
I would take my sisters to Seatown, which was around the corner,
mhm.
and I knew the owner, and I would put them in a shopping cart, send my little sister in the shop, because the sister who was a year and 4 months younger than me, she went to school every day. She went to school every day. If you ask her today about this stuff, she doesn't even remember half of it because she had her childhood. I stayed home, and I had
Wow,
my younger sister,
that's
and
tough.
I would put them in the shopping cart and then pack bags and get change. And with the change, I
And
would
this
every
is at
time
like 9 and 10 years old. This is
9 years old, 9 and
wow.
10 years old,
So then your sister
nine,
was
not
just a
even
little
10,
younger. She
9.
was a little younger, right? So your sister was only like 8 or 7.5, 8 years old,
Yeah, my
right?
sister,
So yeah,
if I was 9, my sister was 8. We're a year and 4 months apart.
okay, okay, yeah,
And so she would go to school every single day. And then after school, she would hang out with her friends and do things. She just was determined that she was going to be a kid.
right,
Sometimes I would
right.
say, "Well, you stay home," and she would cry. "I don't want to stay home. I want to go to school," and cry. "I want to go to school." And she went to school every single
Right,
day. So I
right.
stayed home, and I would do things like go to the store and pack bags. But I never liked to steal. Mother would say, "Y'all go in the store. Y'all go steal some chips or whatever," and she would.
Right,
We would go in there and take the chips and run. I didn't like that. I didn't
right,
always. I don't know. I was always a kid. I like to do the right thing. I never liked to
right,
do the wrong thing. It bothered me. So I would
right.
go to the store and just when the cup filled up, I would pack up bags and get a quarter here, a dime here, a nickel there. When the cup filled up, I would have the cashier cash it in, give me some singles, put the cup back out, and I would pack bags and buy food that way. And then we also had my grandmother and my grandfather who every now and then, my grandmother was a dietitian at Jacoby Hospital. So every now and then she would bring food and stuff to us, but we hid a lot of it too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We hid a lot of it. Nobody really knew what was going on inside the house.
Hmm.
But people also knew, Nina. I'm not going to say that. People didn't know because
Yeah,
I was a 9-year-old girl with children,
right,
that's a fact. And it wasn't
right.
just in the book, it wasn't just, I had another sister that was born in 83. So it wasn't just one kid. I had 2 kids with me.
Right,
I had
right,
2 kids with me. And
right,
I was, a 9-year-old. And so people knew what was going on, but they turned their head. No one did anything. No one
yeah.
helped us, you
Yeah, because I
know.
mean, I'm assuming that even the schools, the teachers must have noticed
I
something.
missed over 100 days of school. I missed 90.
Wow,
I have my records that show,
wow,
and nothing. They passed me right on through. When I went to
right,
NCC,
wow. That says
Norwood
a
Community
lot.
College, I couldn't even read. I had to go to remedial reading how they had the different levels of
Yeah,
remedial
yeah.
reading. I was in the lowest level. It took me 5 to 6 years to graduate because I
Mm-hmm,
couldn't barely
mm-hmm.
read. I'm ignorant to a lot of things. I didn't go to school as a kid. I stayed home,
Right, right. You were
and
being a
no one
mom,
did,
but you shouldn't have
and
been, but you
and
were.
and no one did anything. No one.
Right.
The teachers, people saw me on the block every day with the kids by myself, no parents. I would be out sometime 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. A
Right,
kid.
right.
No one did it. No one called Child Protective Services.
Yeah,
No one called the police. No one did anything. It was just that time period where nothing was shocking. It was
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was so many people going through the crack epidemic, you know,
Right.
going through the effects, I would say, of the crack epidemic that,
especially in our neighborhoods.
oh yes,
So they were all
especially in the
immune
hood.
to it.
And the hood, you know, people really mind their business. You know, I mean, in certain, in the hood, people really state that, you know, everyone's going through the struggle pretty much. And people really mind their business. So so that's how it happened. I was a young kid and by myself pretty much, didn't let anyone know I was smart. I wasn't intelligent. I didn't have the book sense, but I had a whole lot of common sense. And I knew
a lot of street sense too, right? I mean, you had
a lot
to.
of street. Yeah, well, that's the smarts. I tell people being smart and being intelligent is two different things. A smart person, you can drop them off at any place in the street and they can survive. And that is me. I am a survivor. I will survive in any situation, any atmosphere. I can fit in any atmosphere. But I didn't have the intelligence. I read my first book at NCC.
Wow, you must have been so proud of yourself.
Proud of myself.
You must have been.
Proud
That's
of
a huge
myself.
accomplishment.
I thought I was stupid my whole life. And I realized that I just didn't have the opportunity.
Now you're a writer and an author.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So really proud.
I think we turned that around a little bit, right?
Yes.
I mean that's a tough time though, because you have to imagine, and I don't know, I like I said, I'm only on chapter 7, so was it a long time before you ever got your mom back? Did you get your mom back? I mean, was she on crack most of your upbringing? How did that transpire?
It was a lot. So I went at 10 years old. I went to go stay with my grandparents. And that's in the book too, for about a year, but ended up going back home, having a hernia operation that was really pretty much unnecessary. And then certain things happened. I don't know if you got up into the abuse part, but I was sexually abused by
I didn't get there yet.
Okay, I don't want to take it from you, but I was.
No, that's okay. No, it's for our viewers.
I was abused by my stepdad, and then after that, it was really tough because my mother promised me. My case went from criminal court to Supreme Court.
Wow.
My mother had him arrested, and told everyone.
I'm so glad she did that. I'm so glad she did that. Because a lot of times it's shut your mouth. You know what I'm saying? We don't talk about that stuff.
Yes, but she had him arrested, and she told everyone in the neighborhood, told everyone what happened. But then he wrote her a letter from prison saying that if he went to from jail, that if he went to prison, he would die. They would kill him in prison. So she asked me to get on the stand and lie and say he didn't do it. I didn't want to do it, but she promised me that if I did it,
I just gave her kudos, and now
that he would never come back home in the house again. And at the time, again, I love my mother, but I also feared her because I knew I had to live there. So I went and I did as she asked me to do. And then she ended up taking him back. And everyone was like, why you got that man in the house with your daughter? And she would say, well, my daughter lied. And she ended up taking him back. I think she had 2 more kids with him. And I went to go stay with my grandmother because I was too afraid to stay in the house. Because I told and took him back. So while I was up there, he was a crackhead too. And he tried to get her benefits. He called Bureau of Child Welfare, and he told them that she was not home. She was not buying food and all this other stuff. And they investigated. And when they came to the house, they just was like, they immediately called and had the kids removed immediately. So we went through.
Now, were you there or were you with your grandmother?
I was with my grandmother.
Okay.
So we went through foster care. We were in foster care system for 5 years.
You as well? Yes.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was with my grandmother. I was a foster kid, but I was with my grandmother. I was still with my grandmother, but I was still a ward of the state because my mother had custody and my grandparents didn't. So when they took my mother's kids, that included me as well.
Wow.
So we were there in foster care for about 5 years. My mother ended up going to a program. It was called it's called the Bio Remission. At the time when she went, it was co-ed. Now it's just all men's, but it was a co-ed when she went. And she had never really been into church or into the Bible or whatever, but she went and started reading her Bible because it was a church-based program. It was the only program that she could get into. So they made her go to church every single day, and she would read the Bible and pray and read and pray. And she got out about 6 months after being in the program. She was released. And she had to go into this program because when you're in foster care, after 5 years, they can adopt you. So we were getting ready to go up for adoption. So it was like,
Oh, wow.
okay, you got to get yourself together, because if you don't, you're going to lose all of your children. At the
Right.
time, she had 6. Now she has 7,
Wow,
but at
6.
the time it was 6. You're
Wow.
gonna lose your kids. You have to go to this program. So she went into the first program that she could get into, the Bio-Remission Christian-based program. Stayed in it for 6 months, got out. As soon as she got out, she relapsed on crack.
Yeah.
And she was getting high. And she said that because she had learned in that program how to pray, she asked God to help her. She said she asked God to help her because she just couldn't do it. She was powerless.
Yeah.
And when she asked God to help her, she didn't know that God would really help her. She was like, she said, I didn't know that God would really help me. And
Wow.
so she was in the crack house, and everybody was passing around the pipe smoking. And she was smoking the same crack that everyone else was smoking, but she couldn't get high. And she thought they're trying to beat me out of my money, that they're playing it. So she went to 8 different crack houses, and she was smoking crack and could not get high.
Wow.
So from
So
there,
she was smoking, but aware of what was happening.
she said she could not get high, is what she said. She was
Wow.
smoking crack and she could not feel it. She could not get high. And she couldn't believe it because she was not a like Christian like that. She believed in
Right.
God because she started reading her word, and she knew, okay, if I need help, I can pray at that point. But she did not know that God would really
Miracle.
deliver her. She didn't know God would really deliver her from drugs. So she said she was smoking crack. She went to 8 different crack houses and could not get high anymore. And then from there, she had a cigarette problem. She said she smoked cigarettes. She said she got so sick. She said she threw it out and she never picked it up again. You know, people have to get those nicotine packages.
Yep. Yep.
They have
Yep.
to get hypnosis. She just threw it out and never picked it up again. It
Wow.
just right after that, she couldn't drink. She couldn't do anything. It's like God delivered her from
Wow.
drugs. That she did go to the NA meetings, and she just went to parenting classes and ended up getting us back before we were adopted.
Oh my
So
gosh.
she did get us back. Yes.
That's I want to touch on a little bit about the foster care system. Were you with your grandparents during the foster care, or were
I
you actually
was.
okay?
I
Were your
was.
siblings as well, like all of you, or
One of
no?
them. One of them was. We were all split up. So
Oh wow, that
we
must have
all
been
had
really tough
different
on your
dads.
siblings.
It was tough.
Yeah.
Like my sister, the one
Yeah.
of them, a year and 4 months, we were really close. And she's staying with her grandmother. I
Okay.
stayed with my grandmother, and my sister, my sister, the one that was born in 1980, she stayed with me up there, and we stayed with our grandmother. And then the other 3 were with a stranger, but they were together with, and
Wow.
we didn't, and we didn't know where they was living at, and they went
That's
through a lot of
tough.
stuff. They went through a
Yeah,
lot. We
I
thought they were
bet.
doing good and things were great, and the lady was practicing a lot of witchcraft and just
Mhm.
having them engage in stuff that that really messed them up mentally. They went through,
Wow.
yeah.
That's
Hmm.
so tough, right? I mean, that's so tough, the decisions that we make that affect so many lives.
So
And
many.
I was reading your book, and I read the part where your mom did get a lot of money. And I also read the part where she was going to basically see somebody who was doing witchcraft too, like a santeria or like
Yes,
santero.
yes, yes,
I used to do
yes,
santeria for for a few years.
yes,
So, I mean, and then I'm listening to that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I felt the like my anxiety rising as I'm
yes.
reading your book because I'm like, oh my gosh, I mean, we're in 2 different places. You were in New York, I was in Connecticut, but it's funny how our stories have some similar, links to it, and I
Yes.
think that that's why this conversation is so important because there's
Hmm.
so many people out there that have these similar links to what our stories are, right? Whether it's drug abuse, whether it's neglect from parents, whether it's mothers on drugs, or right now with the big opioid crisis, right? Like all the mothers
Yes.
getting hooked
Hmm.
on fathers on opioids and stuff.
Hmm.
Back then it was crack. Now it's like legal prescriptions. Um,
Yes.
but it's just impactful on what these situations, and I'm sure that your mom must have gone through some pretty traumatic things in her life as well to
Mhm.
to fall so easily, right, into drug use, or not easily, but to fall into drug use and to fall into that. And I think that if you're an adult now, so I am assuming that you and your mom are at a better place with each other. Is that
Oh
right?
yes. Oh, we
Yeah.
have a great
Yeah.
relationship.
That's
Really
that's
great
fantastic.
relationship. Yeah, but
That's great.
she's been through so much from when she was a kid. She grew up, she was the youngest of four,
Hmm.
and grew up with my grandparents, wonderful, my grandmother and grandfather, wonderful, but they were very overprotective. They
Hmm.
didn't let her do anything, they didn't let me do anything, but it was
Right.
okay. I needed that because I had,
Right.
see, with me, because I had so much freedom with my mother, I needed that.
Right.
I appreciated
Right.
the parenting. It wasn't like, oh, I just want to get out and do these different things. I knew what was out there in the streets. So
Hmm.
I appreciated being in the house and having security and stability and knowing that there was going to be food on the table every night. And
Right.
knowing that I can go to school and come home. And, I appreciated that from my grandparents. But my mother, she never experienced what I did. So she was sheltered. And when she got a chance to get out, she just got out and went buck wild at a young
That
age.
happens. That
At a
happens.
young age. And a lot of things happened to her. So when she was really young, she was raped at gunpoint. This is before the knife. This is before the video usage. She was raped at gunpoint. She must have been a teenager, 16, 17 years old, beat and raped all night. And she was scared. She couldn't do anything about it. And she was already messing in heroin at the time. And that's when she
Oh
started to
wow.
use heroin, and she got hooked on that. She had to go to it was like a woman's juvenile detention.
Mm.
Um, she had to go there, and I think it was because she was mixed in like with selling it and all that stuff. So she went through that. That's where she met my father. He was a correction officer there, and
Okay.
they ended up
Okay.
getting
Got
into a
it.
relationship. So
Okay.
it goes on and on with me.
And
These stories.
I actually we're gonna take a small break right here.
Okay.
And then when we come back, I want you to talk about that a little bit, because I know that you have done, now I want to talk about how you've taken all of these stories and have made them what you've been making them, with your films, your short films and all that kind of stuff. And I know I watched that story that you're talking about. So when we come back, I
Hmm.
want you to please tell us a little bit about that. Is that okay?
Okay, that's fine.
All
Yes.
right. So
Yes.
don't you guys miss it. Come right back. Don't you miss not one little bit of this, or you're going to be out. All right. Come back. This is Nina Perez at Straight Talk, No Sugar Added. Welcome back. This is Nina Perez at Straight Talk, No Sugar Added. And we have been talking to Nas Panky about some really, really tough life topics and things that have transpired in her life and how she's had to overcome those challenges. And we had just left off talking about her mom and how her mom has gone through some things herself. And the reason I asked that question to Nas was because a lot of times when we have gone through things, like when I wrote my book, I remember people saying, how could you forgive your mom? How could you forgive your mom? You know, she did this and that and this. And I remember thinking she must have gone through some things as well in her life that have caused her to have some damage in her life. When sometimes people can't give you what they don't have. If they're damaged, sometimes they damage you. And it's not on purpose, but it is what happens in life. So Nas, I was asking you about your mom, and you were just starting to explain to us that she had gone through some really heavy things herself.
Oh, yes.
And so, yeah, I want you to just touch on that a little bit, because that will explain to people the backstory as to how, everything that she's gone through is why you went through a lot of what you went through, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
if she was hurt and damaged and nobody helped her through that, she didn't know how to deal with life. And so therefore, sometimes we damage people because we're damaged, right? What's that saying?
Yes.
Hurt people hurt people, you
Yes,
know?
yes,
So tell
yes.
us a little bit about your mom. What did she go through?
She went through a lot when from my understanding, she was pregnant when she was young. She wanted to keep her baby,
Mm-hmm.
and she was given a pill. She didn't know what it was. And she went to the bathroom and just saw her baby's fingers and toes in the toilet. So that devastated
Oh
her.
my
That was from a
gosh.
young age. And then from
Wow.
there, she started, using recreational drugs, which became a habit. And she was the first time she was raped, she pool and games and pinball machine and all that, and the guy asked her to stay behind. It was a friend. She thought he was a friend, and he asked her to stay behind and help him close up the shop. And when everyone left, he locked the door. He pulled out a gun, and
Oh
he
my
just was
gosh.
and
Oh my
beating her,
gosh.
pistol whipping her, and he raped her. And she never told anyone for years. She was scared.
Wow.
Yeah. And then later on in life, this was after this is before she had kids. She got raped. After she had kids and she was like, out there in the street, she got raped again and was held overnight with a machete. So these are
Wow.
there was, and then, and of course she had, my dad was a married man. She met him when she was, recovering and in the juvenile detention. She met him. She was about, I don't know, probably just turning 18, because she was in juvenile detention. She was just turning 18 when she met him, and she thought he was a single man. She was in love with him, and she found out that he was married. By then, she was pregnant with me. It was too late, and
Wow.
she ended up getting. And she just ended up with disappointment after disappointment after
Yeah. Yeah. And a
disappointment
lot of
when
hurt
it
in
came to
between,
men.
man.
Yeah, men after men, just
Wow.
disappointment and just taking care of the kids on her own, wanting love, wanting to have that life, but just not having it. On top
Yeah.
of that, having a habit, which again, we didn't really know, meaning my sisters and I, we didn't know, because she took such good care of us. We were always clean. We always had fun. We always had food to eat. She was fun and loving. And heroin, which is an opioid, is a bad addiction. But to
Yeah.
me, I
And
feel crack
hard to get over.
is
Mm-hmm.
hard. What made crack worse was crack just sends you running every 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Heroin,
Yeah.
you use it, you sit down and chill, 3, 4 hours or 5 hours, and you go back. But crack was something that just took your mind and just held it captive, and you couldn't break free. There was no
Yeah.
freedom. There was
Oh, it's a
just
hard. That was
go, go,
awful.
go, go, go. Yeah, yeah, just go. It was really difficult. And then with heroin, she was able to get on the methadone program, which
Mm-hmm.
was a substitute. Methadone is
It's
horrible
just as
too.
bad. Yeah. I
It's
was gonna say
horrible,
it's almost as
horrible,
bad. Yeah.
horrible. But it was
Mm-hmm.
some type of cure or remedy or solution. But crack, there was just nothing, and it was terrible growing up during that time. Growing up in the crack era with her, it was really hard. I'm gonna tell
Yeah.
you, it was we didn't know who we was going to get. One minute she would be loving, kind, and next minute she may slap us in the face or beat us, and
Right.
we didn't know
Right.
what to expect. It was really difficult. But she went through a very hard. Her life was really hard. I mean, she had everything. But when she got hooked on the drugs and started being around different crowds of people, just certain things happened to her, really traumatizing things happened to her. And I think crack helped her escape from that. It helped her forget, drugs helped her forget about being raped, forget about losing her child, at a young age that she wanted to keep, and not even knowing, taking this pill and didn't know what she was taking.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
hard.
Very,
That's
very
hard.
difficult.
That's so hard.
Mhm.
And so I was I follow your YouTube channel and stuff, and I saw that you have an actually a very powerful, you don't cut anything out of that short like segment of your mom's story. And you explain a little bit at the end that it's your mom's story with the rape of the with the machete. And that was super powerful, Nas, because it stuck with me like the last 2 weeks. I watched it like 2 weeks ago, and I haven't stopped thinking about it because I said, I have a daughter too, right? And then you just start
Yeah.
to think about how easy someone can get hurt like that, and this, I
Mhm.
mean, and she never told anyone. Your mom never told anyone. And most of us don't, right? When we get abused or hurt, we usually don't tell anyone. Or if we
Mhm.
try to tell someone and then nothing happens, then we lose confidence that anybody will ever protect us.
That's right.
So yeah.
Yes. And that's what happened to me after I was sexually abused by my stepfather. My cousin did it. When I was 12, my grandparents sent me to stay at my uncle's house because they were like, okay, well, you're not going over there to Evergreen anymore around that pedophile. So we're gonna send, you go stay with your uncle, because I had my cousins there and I could spend time with my cousin. And she was about maybe 19. I was 12
Hmm.
and 19 going on 20. I believe I was 12. And she was the fun cousin, but she sexually abused me. And I didn't say anything. I never said
Right.
anything to anyone. And then it came out when I was in college at Norwalk Community College, because, and how it came out is my sister she did it to my sister, one of my younger sisters.
Okay.
And come to find out, she did it to 3 of my mother's kids,
Wow.
because, these pedophiles, they target certain kids, the
Yeah.
ones that they know that they can do it to and get away
Yeah.
with. And my mother was on drugs and she knew that she could do it and get away with it. So,
Right. But
and
that's
she
very,
pretty much did.
and it's interesting. And I'm glad that you're open about this and that you speak about this so openly, because it shows healing too. It shows that
Yes.
God has really helped you with your healing. And it also exposes the fact that women can be pedophiles too. A
Yes.
lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
they look, you're looking at the guy, you're looking at the man or the uncle, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it ended up being a cousin who was a female.
Yes.
And this happens male and female, and it happens to both boys and girls. And I think that
Yes.
one of the things that's really impactful, is that I think lately with this big Me Too movement that came out, that some men started coming on board saying, well, me too, you know
Yes.
and a lot of men weren't really doing that before. Men
Mm-hmm.
get ashamed because they think it
Mm-hmm.
it says something about their machismo, if you will, or the fact that they're men. It doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what happens. And so it's a very powerful thing when me and you can have a dialogue like this, very transparent, very clear,
Yes.
and nobody has to feel like you are a victim, but it
Mm-hmm.
also doesn't feel like you are accusatory either, like, oh, they should pay. You're just like, these are
Yes.
facts, and
Yes.
this is what it is, and you
Mm-hmm.
should be okay with talking about it. You should be okay with exposing
Mm-hmm.
lies. You should be okay with knowing that what was done to you is wrong,
That's
and not
right.
and not that you were wrong, but that the
Mm-hmm.
person that did it to you is wrong. And one of the things I always say is, to me, there's two types of shame. There's the shame of when somebody does something to you and then you feel like it's your shame. It's not.
Yes.
Then
Yes.
there's the shame that sometimes you should be ashamed of yourself. Like, if I'm stealing something, I should be ashamed of myself. That way I stop doing that behavior. But when
Yes.
somebody like my stepfather who sexually abused me, I carried that shame for years until I realized that's not my shame to carry. Actually, that's his
Mm-hmm.
shame. He should be
That's
ashamed,
right.
not me. you
Mm-hmm.
know
Mm-hmm.
so I
Mm-hmm.
think that what you're doing is phenomenal, because not everybody has the know-how, the skill set, or the courage to
Mm-hmm.
not just write a book, which you did, and it is really fantastic. So
Thank
again,
you.
Evergreen Uprooted, please pick it up. But also the fact that you're now trying to create these stories that are now visual as well. And I
Yes.
wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. What's your creative process of all of this? Like, how do you? Because when I was writing the book, and I don't know if you felt like that writing your book, but when I was writing the book, it was painful, but it was also cathartic. I also felt like I was healing through the process, right?
Yes. Yes.
How is that with actually visualizing it? Because I that's just that's interesting. That's a good and a good outlet for you to be super creative about what you're trying to
Yes.
say.
Yes. Well, I don't really communicate well verbally. I try my best, but I've never been that person. So I write because that's the way I can communicate. I
Mm,
think I communicate a lot clearer when I write. And I see with screenplays, and I write screenplays, is a
hmm.
lot different than writing a book, because
Yeah, it
screenplays,
is. Yeah.
it's structure. You got to stick with the structure. Is pretty much action, description, and dialogue, and you got to make that interesting.
Hmm.
with screenplays. Whereas with a book, you know, you can use your five senses and you can really go deep into what do you see, touch, hear, taste, and smell. And so when I wrote Evergreen Uprooted, that was huge for me because I was able to revisit my childhood, but through adult eyes. You know, because if we don't revisit stuff, we still see it the same way. So we have to go back and do that. With screenplays, I really love screenplays. I love seeing my writing come to life on the screen.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. I found that so interesting.
And it's another way to connect with people, to touch them, to reach them, to share with them. I know there's so many people that has experienced way more than I have in life, and I've experienced some stuff that's not even in that book, but I know
I'm sure
people who have experienced more than me. And so if I can touch someone who's going through right now, through a story, and they can look at a film or a TV show and say, I can relate to that character. That's me. And see that character win, see that character overcome. Then I'm doing something, I feel like I'm living out my purpose. Life, I'm living with purpose when you do that. I'm just not getting up and just going on. I have these awful things that happen that I experienced, but I can turn it around and make it a blessing. You know, I could either hold it on to it, but I can say, okay, there's a reason why I went through these things. And here is the reason, so that I can bless someone else. And so that's what I do with screenwriting. I sit down and I think about my characters. I think about the story. What is the theme? What is the meaning that I want people, what do I want people to walk away with after they watch my film or TV show? How do I want them to feel? What is the purpose of it? And I think about that. And just try to put together stories that's going to really touch people. And you know, even the RAPE, recovering after post-traumatic experience, even after that, even with that, it was so raw because I wanted people to see. It's hard to watch, but that's just what it is. And you'll never know unless you've been through it, what it feels like to have a stranger. I don't know what that feels like. And I've been sexually abused several times by people that I know, but I don't know what they feel to have a stranger put a gun or a knife. So there's certain things that you'll never know what it feels like, but I can show you. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And so that's what I did with RAPE. So it's just a way to connect with people, to touch people. I'm very raw from my book to my screenwriting to what I produce. I want people to see what it really is. Like your show is called Straight Talk. You know, no BS, no
sugar added, right?
Yeah, no sugar coat, none of that. It is what it is.
Yeah,
and sometimes we need to see that because people are going through, people are hurting, and people need to see people that's like them. You know how we talk about in film, we talk about diversity in film. We need to see people that are flawed, that experience some things in life, not that just grew up with this beautiful life with, you know, and their biggest problem is trying to figure out what color they want to dye their hair. I'm talking about people who've experienced some stuff. We need to see that as well.
And there's a lot more of those too. There's a lot more people that have experienced some stuff that maybe have never talked about it. And there's people that look like they got their stuff together and they don't have their stuff together. They're falling apart inside. And that's the purpose for Straight Talk. The Straight Talk is like just talking real life topics. That's all it's about. Let's talk. Let's get down and dirty. Let's talk about the real stuff. I'm tired of all the phony baloney stuff on TV. I just can't. You know, that's why I was so intrigued by your YouTube channel, because you just put it out there. You ain't playing. You just put it out there. Here's what it is. And even as I was watching, I'm like, oh my gosh, like you can't even, you know, especially the RAPE, like, you know, those kind of things you can't even watch with little ones, right? This is real adult content, real adult topics that need to be discussed. They need to be discussed. You know, have you done that? Have you taken like your short film anywhere and to have a panel discussion about it, or not yet?
I have not. I've been so caught up with writing and working so much.
Writing
it's so
takes
much
time.
that But you know, 2020 is so much, even with promoting my book, I haven't been doing it. I said 2020, I want to get my website up the way I should. I've been writing and working on set, working at Tyler Perry Studios, worked at Divorce Court, just working for different, just really working. And it's been amazing, but I need to I need to stay on course. I always say stay on course, because it's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy to stay on the narrow road. You know, it's so easy to get on the broad road, and you be on that road, and then it takes you so long to get to where God is trying to bring you. So at this point, I'm getting to where God is it wants to bring me, and that will be promoting the book more, because I'm now trying to create a television show.
Okay.
But it's not going to be just in the 80s. It's going to be the older version of me going to college.
Okay.
As a grown woman, single parent with 2 kids who could barely read, and my experiences with, you know, the friends that I made, with the professors that, you know, I remember the first semester, I wanted to quit. I was like, okay, I don't know why I'm here. I remember I went to school one day, and you know me from school, Nina.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school one day and I cussed this girl out, and that's not me. I was waiting for the space, and the person pulled out, and when they pulled out, someone else pulled in. And I jumped out, left my car running, jumped out and called this girl so many names. And what she did, she rolled up, she didn't even look at me. She just rolled up the window first, started the car, backed out the space, and parked someplace else. And I parked my car, and I saw her later that day, because I had just went to church too. That was a bad part. I just went to church on Sunday. This was on a Monday. And so I saw her, and I was I felt so bad. And I apologized. And she looked at me and she said, Miss, I didn't even see you. And I knew at that point that I had an issue with anger. I had an issue, because for me to call her the names that I called her, and to react the way that I did over a parking spot was crazy. And I remember praying and like, God help me. I don't know how to love myself. I don't know how to do this thing. I don't know why I'm here. I just help me, you know. And I remember just God saying, I'm excellent. Strive for excellence, because you work for me. I work for God, and everything I do is excellent. And I remember I made a decision. I said, I'm going to try. I said, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to try. It was hard reading. I never read a book in my life, and now I have to read this stuff and try to comprehend it and everything. And I remember my professor was Professor Steve Cohen. He was amazing. He was amazing, amazing. Truly, truly, God just blessed me with amazing professors at Norwalk, because
I know,
even though it was a community college, they really care about your education. They were so invested in my education, I have to say. And I remember just praying, I'm going to strive for excellence. And from that day, I sat in the front of the class, right in the middle, in the professor's face, so I wouldn't be distracted. And then I would go after class and go to the library and read over my notes, and I would be in the shower, try to memorize everything, because when you go your whole life without really going to school, most of your life without going to school, and then you're in school, but you can't read well, and you have to do a little, you have to train your brain to be able to retrieve and retain information. I couldn't retain it. I would get it, but then it would leave me. So I had to train my brain to be able to learn and retain information.
Well, especially because now you're a screenwriter, so you really have to, because you got to remember the character and what you're doing and how it's going. And screenwriting is a whole different animal.
A whole different, and I love it. It is a challenge. I love having like a blank page and putting together, creating the world, because you can create any world you want and put your characters in the situation, and then just have them battle, you know, having the antagonist or whoever the antagonist could be a person, it can be nature, a force of nature, you know, it could be anything, and just having your character overcome the antagonist, you know, but also deal with their personal internal issues. The internal issues to me is more important than the external issues.
I'm really, really excited to see what you're going to be coming up with this year of 2020. I'm super excited to see how how we can support you in that and follow you. You said you're getting your website up and running and
Yes.
stuff like that, but we can find you on YouTube, right?
Yeah, and on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. I'm on
Okay.
Instagram. Nas
Okay.
Nas Pankey, NAZ Pankey. So you can find
Yes.
me on YouTube,
Yep.
Nas Panky, on Facebook, on Instagram. I want to get my website
Awesome.
back up. It will be www.naspanky.com. So everything is
Very
Nas
simple.
Panky. Yes,
Yeah,
very
that's
easy.
great. Yeah.
Yes.
But you know that but you're really doing a fantastic job, Nas. I'm
Thank
super
you.
proud of you. I'm super proud of you overcoming these
Thank you.
challenges and not like getting in a fetal position somewhere and just saying woe is me type of thing, but you're like, you know what, it
Yes.
happened. What am I going to do with that?
Yes.
And that's what I like to do. I like to speak to people who have taken their challenges and have used it as a springboard to move forward,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to, oh, this is why I keep doing this and I'm going to stay here forever type of, some
Mm-hmm.
people are okay with that. I'm not okay with that. I think
Mm-hmm.
that I've spent too many years of my life with maybe thinking about a victim mentality type of thing. And I'm
Yes.
like, I'm getting nowhere with this mentality. I need to
Mm-hmm.
move on. So
Yes.
I see you doing that. I'm super, super proud of you.
Thank
I'm
you.
so excited that you were able to take a little bit of time and be with me today on the show. I'm grateful. And I want you to just close us out really quick with a short words of wisdom for those people who are looking, who have been through some stuff and just need you to give like a nice solid, here, take this home with you.
I would say your past affects your future. Never be
Hmm.
afraid to go back to your past and heal so that you can move on and grow. And here's a quote from Nas Panky: live loving and love living.
Oh, that's awesome,
That's
Nas.
the
Thank
best thing you
you.
can do. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank
It's been
you.
amazing.
I'm
Um,
glad you were here.
thank you. Thank you. This was really awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course. And again, guys, don't you dare forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Straight Talk No Sugar Added. Also, our podcast and our website. Make sure you get on there and ring the little bell notification. So every time we have a new episode, you are there to take a look and comment and like and let me know what you think. Give me your feedback. I want to thank Nas Panky for being here. I want to thank you for watching.
Yeah.
Be really, really supportive of one another. Let's respect one another. Let's encourage one another. This is Nina Perez at Straight Talk, No Sugar Added. Until next time.